I mean, but doxing isn't illegal. I don't know if people know that. Like it's distasteful, but it's not illegal to say this is a person, there's their address, right? Like it's now if you say here's a person, here's their address, I want you to kill them or whatever, like that's different. Or if you like try to orchestrate some sort of harassment, you can fall victim to some of that stuff. But as uncomfortable as it may make people, doxing itself isn't generally illegal, because how could it be? Like, what would the criminal act be of just releasing someone's address and name?
Do you think it should be illegal?
I don't know. It's tough.
I'm torn on it.
Because like I've been doxxed and have had negative results from the doxing, but it's not like the person who doxed me did it. Someone else took information and did a bad thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. How could it be illegal though, Joe? Like at the end of the day, right? Like you've given your address to 1 million people, right? Like if nothing else, you give it to the post office. Mm-hmm. You share it with the fire department. You share it with every utility company. Like you don't have a privacy interest in your home. Now, maybe if you live completely off grid, right? Mm-hmm. And don't give your address to anyone else. But every traditional notion of privacy is violated by people's address almost constantly, because tons of third parties have your address.
Obviously. Yeah.
So yeah. I have trouble saying it should be illegal personally, unless we come up with a system by which you can actually conceal your address from anyone you want. And then you actually do conceal that address.
So I do think anonymity on the net should be permissible. Meaning you and I voluntarily chose to go to social media and put our real names out there. But I do think that it should be possible for someone to engage with social media without fear that that's going to have any sort of negative impact on them.
Okay, but let me minor counterpoint.
Do it.
If you engage in social media in that way, how would someone then proceed to dox you?
Well, let's say they, like Libs of TikTok had. You know, like she was like trying to hide who she was.
Right. But someone found out who she was somehow.
Right. Because she made a mistake in registering something.
Right. So she divulged that information to a third party associated with her anonymous profile. Then someone was able to find it.
You can't open a bank account without giving some kind of name.
Exactly. Right. And that's the thing. We have historically had a system where the sharing of an address is not a breach of privacy. And now we want it to be, yet in every other aspect of our lives, that sharing of the address is still not a breach of privacy. Like you get junk mail to your name, to your mailbox all the time. Like because you gave your address to somebody.
Okay. But what I'm saying is, just because first of all, you might not give just because in order to survive in society, you're obligated, let's say if you're Libs of TikTok, so you're obligated to give a bank account a name of a person who's holding on to it, because there's no way they could feasibly service a corporation that does not have an individual attached to it.
Yeah, you can.
You can have another company that signs off on behalf of that company.
It depends on how you structure a corporation and what state you incorporate, but sure, yeah, you can do it. Like in Minnesota, for example, you can have a corporate officer who runs a corporation, and then you can also have a registered agent with whatever address of the registered agent there is. So there'd be no direct attachment to your name. I mean, you'd have to hire someone to be the corporate officer in theory, right?
Right.
And I think in Wyoming, you can do it without a name or address at all. But I mean, there are ways it costs more. It's more burdensome for sure than just putting your name on it. But if you're Libs of TikTok, and I love Libs of TikTok, and I think that the doxing of them by a news organization was particularly heinous, right?
You're using the term news organization very loosely.
Right,
when you're referring to Taylor Lorenz.
Yeah, Taylor Lorenz is a giant piece of shit, and I hope that Ariana Jacobs actually just rakes her over the coals.
Yep.
Yeah, and whatever. Washington. She's not Washington Post. Who was she? Wait, was she Washington
Times?
Post?
I think she was with the Times.
Washington Times.
No,
Either way,
New York Times.
New York Times.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whoever, like, I hope they're all fucking done in by Taylor Lorenz being a giant pile of shit. Don't get me wrong. But like, and I think that's particularly egregious. But if you're Libs of TikTok, right, and you create the Libs of TikTok LLC with your real name on it and your address, and someone just goes and looks up the business filings in all 50 states for Libs of TikTok and finds that LLC filing, is like, oh, here's the person who owns Libs of TikTok. Like, that's kind of on you. Like, I know it doesn't seem fair, but like, you did that, right? Like, you did that thing.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's like, okay, especially we're living in an environment today where it's like half the country is gonna say you should be tarred and feathered if you don't go along with what their political ideology is. So now, if I want to engage, it's like, so if I want to expose, if you're Libs of TikTok, so like, and she's living in New York, so she basically was even if she had not made that mistake, it's like, so now her whole life should be basically like destroyed with people like harassing her and her family members because she's trying to like get a message out there, and she was trying to do it anonymously. But I mean, look, I'm not advocating.
Yeah, no,
I'm not advocating for a. I'm not. I don't want to. My biggest problem with advocating for a law protecting it or stopping doxing it is that I am positive the government will flip it on its head to F us up. I get that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So if I advocate for a law to be passed that's preventing doxing, I'm almost feeling like I'm giving the government more authority, and that's the last thing I ever want to advocate for. I'm simply saying that the idea that, yeah, we should try and expose everyone and that's totally cool. I think I think a lot of people are taking advantage of that, and I don't think it's bettered society.
Yeah, and again, my personal perspective is I don't enjoy doxing. I don't advocate for it. I don't think people should do it, but I have a hard time making it illegal because, again, at the end of the day, like, you do give this information voluntarily and you enter the public arena voluntarily, even if you do it anonymously. And I believe internet anonymity is a valuable thing and people should engage in it whenever they choose. And, you know, there are days where I go, God, I wish I would have stayed anonymous, and like some of my friends have with their activity. But if someone were to expose those friends' name and addresses, like, I can't just go, well, it should have been illegal. Like, it should be illegal because they tried to keep it anonymous. Because how did it become not anonymous? It's not like they're like, what most people don't understand is most doxing is not done by some like elite hacker move like Hugh Jackman and Swordfish, right? Like, they're not hacking into the mainframe and finding your information. They're doing social deconstruction of things that you willingly share. You post this and this and this, that leads them to this thing. You posted a picture from your backyard. Then you posted a picture from this restaurant. And then you posted a picture of this thing and they go, oh, wait, I know this town. And then they'll go and they'll find the backyard. I think people doxed me because they knew I had moved and I broadcast from a gun safe and they knew roughly when I moved. So they went to the area where I live, and they searched for hours through real estate listings until they found a picture of the gun safe. Like, that's what they did. And it's pretty autistic and super gay, but like, I didn't have to say I broadcast from a gun safe. I didn't have to show the safe door. Like, I thought it was funny. Like, those are on me. I gave them that. I didn't have to say I moved. I didn't have to say any of those things that I said. I gave them the avenues to find the info.
But I feel like you're almost like justifying that, like, well, you screwed up. It's like,
I did. Yeah, of course.
But I'm saying is like, so it's like, it feels so violent.
But there's a distinct action between a doxing, which again, I don't like doxing. I don't want people to do it. I wish I wasn't doxed. Absolutely. And then someone doing something with it. The person who swatted me commit a crime, and I would, prefer them prosecuted for the crime. Right. If someone showed up to my house, I would ask them to leave. Maybe with a gun in my hand, ask them to leave, for example.
Very politely. but firmly.
Yeah, right. And I'd say, get the fuck away, right? Like, there are kids here. Fuck off. Like, that would be, and I think that's reasonable. And
be
I don't want...
and multiply.
What?
You say be fruitful and multiply.
Yeah.
And never come
right,
back.
or I will divide.
To yourself.
Yep. I said, be fruitful and multiply to me. And I would say, go to them. Go be fruitful and multiply, or I will divide you by 0.
Yes.
Right? Like, you'll be a null proposition at that point. But like, no, and of course, I don't want anybody harassed. I think what happened to libs of TikTok is absolute garbage. Of course. But at the same time, like, can I say it's a criminal act just because other people do bad shit because of it? Like, that's the dilemma with this.
But here's the thing. You see, Nick, I think you're sort of bypassing something here, because the objective in doxing is not even necessarily to have a bad thing done to the victim of doxing, but to chill them from actually engaging in their free speech under the threat that they may be doxed. See, in other words, like a libs of TikTok or other people who you and I may both know who would rather remain anonymous, right? And do what they do, but they work in an environment which is, let's say, very liberal, and they're like, yeah, if I had this situation here, I became public, that could cause me financial harm and other things that I'm doing, and the threat that this can happen to you will stop the next person who might be willing to engage in this sort of exposure of corruption or other things, cower under the threat of the impact that could have on their lives if, in fact, they end up ever being doxxed. And I think that that's a net loss to society.
I think so too, but I'm not aware of any criminal prohibition.
I'm not saying there is a criminal prohibition.
Right, of a private citizen chilling someone else's speech. I think it's a negative thing. And I think our information should be protected as much as we want, but yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I didn't have anything. I was like, okay. I was like, I'm very torn on this issue. It's a complex issue.
Look, doxing is very uncomfortable for people, and it's reasonably uncomfortable. The internet is a crazy place with crazy people. It's very, very simple to say doxing is bad. That's a simple thing. It's much, much harder to justify government criminal intervention. What is a criminal punishment? Is the criminal punishment sufficient to deter the criminal activity? Like,
maybe there could be a civil penalty that applies to someone who doxes you.
So, okay. So, Joe, let's say Montegraph doxes you, right?
Right.
What's the civil penalty?
I love how you drag me into this action.
Yeah,
here.
I know.
Like, you did this legal mindset, and now it's like, oh, let me drag Joe in here.
Gotta bring as many people in as possible. Okay, so it's not Montegraph. Let's say a broke retard from Colorado pretending to live in Illinois doxes you. So what's the civil penalty?
Is this non-Montegraph broke?
Yeah, broke anybody
retard,
else?
Somebody who touches.
It's Montegrove. No, what is the sufficient civil penalty?
I know. So, I mean, look, it could depend on the nature of the person's social. You can assess the impact of it depending on the nature of the size of the person's social media status, the doxing victim. I mean, there's different ways you can try and assess the impact of the doxing, but
right. But what's a sufficient civil penalty?
What I'm saying is the point of the civil penalty would be to chill someone from engaging in the doxing.
But how do you chill someone when? Okay, so there's a civil penalty, right? My point, though, is if I have to go after someone for that civil penalty, how much does it cost me to go after them, and what's the sufficient penalty? And do they have anything to take?
It's very simple. Very simple. You make it a statutory maximum of, like, let's say $1,000.
Okay.
Tack on emotional distress, and tack on a successful suit that you get all reasonable legal fees.
Okay, so you dump 30 grand in hoping.
No, because what will end up happening invariably is that you will have a field of attorneys who will basically pop up there that we represent people who have been doxxed. And those reasonable attorney's fees can easily skyrocket into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that will chill people from doxing.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Oh, they will. Trust me.
I really don't think so. But I mean, maybe. I just, because you still like the doxers, you're not going to recover from them.
No, I'm saying is after this starts becoming like a thing, people will stop doxing. It'll become known that, oh my gosh, that Taylor Renz now ended up incurring $400,000 in legal fees because she doxed Libs of TikTok. So then the next time someone's going to dox, they'll be like, I don't want to be the next Taylor Renz and be on the hook for a $400,000.
Yeah, but most people won't have any sufficient means to pay the judgment, like ever in their life. Like doxers typically, we're not talking about.
You're right. They're like homeless people, like living in someone's basement.
Right, upper middle class.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
That's the problem.
They're judgment proof, basically.
Are their pockets?
You're saying they're judgment proof because of their pockets. Fair enough.
So when you were talking about suing doxers earlier, and I was being autistic, I'm guessing you're talking about the companies, not the individuals. I wasn't talking about suing doxers. Like, there's no way you could have a sufficient penalty to dissuade someone from doxing, in my opinion. Joe was talking about a civil penalty, and I was trying to point out the problems with it. Like the idea of suing someone who's like on a web forum doxing you, the chances of that person having any sufficient money to recover versus what you would have to pay for it. It's like, even if you win attorney's fees, and your attorney's fees cost $30,000 to $40,000, but the person doesn't have $30,000 to $40,000 to give you, like you're not going to have, like Joe suggested that you'd have those attorneys who just operate for those fees. But like, if they can't recover those fees either, they're not going to be running to do that business. So it'd only be in the case of like Taylor Lorenz working for New York Times that you might get some sort of recovery. Otherwise, you're just suing anonymous people or like random people. And the other part of that is part of the expense of suing a doxer or someone who is posting anonymously on the internet is if you're hard to find on the internet, typically so are they. In suing someone who's like a Reddit person who's anonymous, you can. So I know someone who subpoenaed Reddit for someone's information. It took 2 years, tens of thousands of dollars in motion practice because Reddit was resistant to turning over the information. And the information they got wasn't sufficient to find out who they were. So like it doesn't always work. And plus, once you're doxxed, when you sue someone, you then redox yourself even more. So a lot of times, again, Libs of TikTok being a very particular example that doesn't apply to most people getting doxxed. A lot of times doxing will, as Met says, Blake says, will produce a Streisand effect and will draw attention to your doxing. Or, a lot of states will require you to dox yourself on the documents. A lot of times it's just better ignored. Again, there are very, very specific instances where the doxing is particularly egregious and public, like Libs of TikTok. Outside of those instances, the overwhelming majority of people would not benefit from lawsuits for doxing. More about sites like True People Search, because it has to be a threat to public safety. How would that be a threat to public safety, though? Like, they're gathering publicly available information. They're not gathering secret information. They have to get that from somewhere that you have given that info and consented to the sharing of it. So it's that's the hard part. Like, and I know it doesn't seem right. It always goes to our stomachs and say we're uncomfortable with this. We're uncomfortable with this idea, but use a P.O. box for everything. That doesn't solve everything, unfortunately. A lot of times P.O. boxes are even tied to names and addresses. There's a whole lot that goes into it. But you're not gonna get there for most of it anyway. So it's not really worth like worrying about. Like you can protect yourself from all this stuff. It's a complicated scheme of very careful entity ownership of your assets, like your house or whatever, trusts that have no connection to your name, where the trustees are LLCs that are shielded from your information, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of that is stepping stones. And there's no guarantee that will protect you either. And you have to be perfect.